Vegeta is just the best Dragon Ball character there is, but if you disagree with me, feel free to let me know who your favourite character is in the comments section. I bet when you heard there was a new Dragon Ball game coming out, you thought it was a fighting game, didn't you? I know, I certainly did. Even though Xenoverse had a good amount of story, it was still a fighting game at heart, just like pretty much every Dragon Ball game in recent memory. But Dragon Ball Fusion lands the combo breaker. Why? Because it's actually a turn-based RPG. Yes way. I actually had no idea when I first turned the game on. I was expecting a Xenoverse-esque fighting game on the 3DS with some goofy fusions as a gimmick, but what I actually got was a fully fledged turn-based JRPG set in the Dragon Ball universe. It's textbook RPG from the get-go. You even get to create a character, choose your race. Saiyan is obviously the best choice, but each of the races have strengths and weaknesses which are explained to you by the game. Then you've got face, body, hair, and then you move on to your attire, which you can continually change throughout the game as you unlock new pieces of clothing. As I've already mentioned a couple of times now, it is turn-based, but it's an obscenely deep battle system which requires a lot of strategy and a lot of input from the player. The sheer number of mechanics that slowly get unlocked over time would be simply overwhelming to the player if it weren't introduced over time, and I think they pace the learning curve incredibly well. The short rundown is this: you initiate a battle by running into other fighters that are flying around. You are then teleported to a circle-shaped arena. When it is your turn to act, you have a number of options: melee attacks, ki blast, special moves like Gallic Gun or Kamehameha, Zenkai attacks which are a different form of special move, ultra fusions, regular fusions, and the list goes on, but more importantly, each of the things you can do also requires some strategy to get the most out of them. All the characters in the battle can be knocked around the arena. If they are knocked out of the arena, they lose their turn and take extra damage. If you knock them into one of your friendly characters, that friendly character will hit them back, and if they hit the enemy into another one of your teammates, they'll also give them a whack. It's extremely satisfying to knock them just right so you can play a big game of enemy ping pong. But how do you knock them back, you ask? Well, when you initiate a melee attack or special attack, basically anything that involves physically hitting the enemy, you are given a choice of 8 different directions to attack in. Whichever direction you choose is the direction the enemy will be knocked back, but the enemy also gets to block 3 out of the 8 directions, so whether you're attacking or defending, you always have something to do. There are tons of other mechanics, but suffice it to say, it is one of the most active turn-based battle systems I've ever experienced, and that's a good thing because unfortunately that is definitely the main attraction of the game. It's actually one of the only criticisms I have. The game does begin to get repetitive. You'll mostly be out searching for and capturing new fighters, kind of like Pokemon. There is a huge list of fighters you can enlist on your team of 5 and it adds an interesting dynamic. But the narrative can only carry you so far, and they intended for this to be something that lives on since there are online features and new events are being held periodically in game. But if you aren't still absolutely loving the combat, there isn't much else left for you once you reach the end. But don't let that discourage you. That comes quite a long time in. You'll still get plenty of exceedingly enjoyable game time out of Dragon Ball Fusions. They don't call it Dragon Ball Fusions for nothing. You'll find some pretty entertaining fusions in this game that you won't see anywhere else. Ever wondered what Nappa and Raditz would look like if they fused? What about Goldo and Jace? The theme of the game is surprisingly less to do with fusions than you might think. While it is a central mechanic and you'll see these weird fusions happening all the time, the story isn't really about fusing. It's about tournaments and rivalry and so much more. It is a completely original story set in the Dragon Ball universe, and it's actually quite a good one. It could have done with slightly better pacing. It isn't quite at the perfect level of the battle mechanic pacing, but it's still an enjoyable little romp nonetheless. The soundtrack is actually pretty good. It's very Dragon Ball, and that's a good thing, I think. Nothing immediately jumps out at me, but it's all very fitting, and you'll most likely be enjoying the quintessential Dragon Ball melodies while ping-ponging your enemies like there's no tomorrow. The only other issue I have with the game, other than the repetitiveness in later stages, is the overabundance of screens and messages. There are just too many. Like, Say you get a quest, you get a pop-up screen that tells you about the quest. You then go and do the quest, which is a battle most of the time. So you win the battle, which brings up the XP screen. After that screen is the character status screen. Then it fades to black, and then the first thing you're greeted with upon returning to the game is a quest complete screen. Then you have a new pop-up screen that tells you acquired some XP from completing the quest. And of course, then it has to show you the XP screen again, and then the character status screen again. I can see how all of these things individually make sense, but the way they all often line up is just annoying. But other than that, really I've enjoyed Dragon Ball Fusions a little too much. This may be the first Dragon Ball game in a very long time that I can confidently recommend to a huge range of people. I'll happily recommend this to Dragon Ball fans. I'll happily recommend it to JRPG fans. Hell, I'd even recommend it to strategy RPG and anime fans in general. It's certainly one of the freshest Dragon Ball video game experiences I've had in a long time. It's the perfect accompaniment to the new Dragon Ball Super anime, so get out there and ping pong some human warrior scum. Saiyans for life. Thanks for watching. If you like this review, hit that like button, comment, subscribe to see more of me and everything I do, and if you enjoyed my content, you could consider supporting my channel on Patreon, or just use the Amazon links in the video description when making purchases. Your support means the world to me. Other than that, I'll see you all soon.